And we're not wizards. We are the best. And also, we're not wizards. Enjoy the show. Bye.
I've got my coffee. I'm ready.
You have got coffee because it's 2:00 in the afternoon.
It's leftover coffee from the morning, so it still counts.
Do you just top it up? Are you a typical American, like I've got a coffee pot that you go to and you just kind of like top it up during the day, or do you have a jar of like expensive instant coffee or... Yeah.
No. I make it in the morning and then drink it. Usually I'm done by now. This is a weird day. I didn't even start making coffee till almost 10 something, so it's been a weird one. But yeah, I know. The weird thing is I'm like most Americans. I don't have an electric tea kettle. I still use just like a gas one, and then we heat that up. But we do have a lot of tea here too. So
yeah, I seen one of you Americans make tea on a rather famous kind of short video where they got a tea bag and a pot of water. Or a cup of water, they put the tea bag in the cup.
Right.
And then they put it in the microwave.
Oh.
Yeah.
I apologize on behalf of my fellow countrymen.
It's right. That's just like a bad... And it's like, and then they looked straight in the camera and they're like, and that's how you make British tea. And it's like... It's like you're so wrong in every level. I would have chucked you in the harbour myself.
Exactly.
Had it been that time.
Right, because when you make it, you're doing a full pot and taking hits of that, so to speak, off at the rest of the day, right?
I've got like a little cafe. Yeah, well, no, because tea.
Oh,
here's an interesting thing, right? That I discovered working from home, which I do, is that. And you guys are just gonna have to wait for an intro, by the way, because we're not
talking about games today. This is important.
This is important, right? Is that I've discovered from working from home, and I don't know if this is the same for you. But I don't know if there's some kind of internal, kind of perpetual kind of energy machine going on in your average cup of coffee. Because if I make a cup of tea and I drink it and 5 minutes later that thing's gone cold. Whereas if I make a cup of coffee, I can have a cup of coffee sitting for a good kind of 10, 15, 20 minutes and it'll still be slightly warm. And I don't know if there's some kind of aerodynamic thing going on, or if coffee generally kind of,
you know what? You're right. I was noticing that the other day. I was working on a prototype in my living room, and I made a cup of coffee in the morning, and then I switched to tea, and that tea got really, really cold. I'm sure some of it is observational bias. We're walking away longer than we think we are. But you're right. I feel like tea goes cold quicker. Is it possible there's more viscosity?
I don't. It's a thermodynamic question. We need to get somebody on the next show. We need to invite somebody in the coffee and tea trade and let them argue over, first of all, which drink is better, secondly, why tea is continually disappointing. Because the other thing with tea, and I know there's iced tea fans out there. Mm-hmm. Not iced tea as in the West Coast rapper, but
he's got fans too.
He's probably iced tea drinking iced tea. On the front of his next album cover, because he's getting to that age, because he dropped did he not get into the kind of the acting gig with kind of like the line and stuff like that? So he's
all over TV.
He's all over doing TV and stuff like that.
I do believe he has actually done a line of commercials here in the States that are for iced tea. So
and the circle is complete. He's got a famous kind of rapper. I used to listen to him when I was younger. But anyway, see, this is like a fireside chat, and the reason people that were having a fireside chat is because we needed something to kind of like calm us down after a long day, because sometimes you're just doing stuff, one thing after another, and that to-do list never seems to get shorter. And sometimes, if you're working from home, and as they say, every home is your someone's home is actually their castle. And there's nothing worse than you working on your things to-do list and discovering that you've got not an awful lot of time to do the stuff that you need to do. You can end up in a panic. You could technically end up in some kind of castle panic. So I thought, I need an expert who's going to help me through my castle panic. So I'm
Flawless.
I'm joined
Brilliant segue.
by Justin De Witt. There you go. And now we can start the show. Like we
started. There you go.
I just decided, right, you could do an intro and people are going to be going, what's happening here? And if it's okay, I'll leave it in. And if it's not okay, I'll kind of take it out. But it doesn't matter.
We could do another one if we need to. I love it.
We don't need to.
I like the idea of leaving all the tea talk in the beginning. People are going to be like, what show is this? Is this some sort of across the pond tea argument? Nope.
No, long-time listeners will be fully aware that there is no such thing as stuff kind of off topic. When you generally start a show by asking Jamie Stegmaier whether or not he can sing, then everything's kind of open. You're in Texas.
I am, Austin, Texas.
And how are the stars at night?
Big and bright, just like they say. Honestly, they're the same everywhere. But yeah, no, Texas has a lot of stuff like that. That is takes a while to get used to. I'm not a native Texan. I moved here about 20 years ago, and it's taken a while to get used to it. It is very much its own mentality.
Are you still treated as like an? Are you still treated like an outsider?
Depends on who I'm talking to. I can tell some people to get off my lawn, y'all, because they're new and they've only been here for a few months. But other people will tell me, "What are you doing here, Yankee?" So yeah, it's an interesting place.
You just wait until we secede, then we'll be chucking all you 20-years out here.
Oh my gosh!
Building our wall. Let's keep it fun and light and tasty and wonderful and I'm going to have a little kind of I like to kind of like have a little kind of fly back into the past before we stare at the castle walls of the present and look off into the distance at the siege engine that's appearing over the hill with a couple of elephants. In terms of like, let's set the way back clock. Growing up, what kind of kid were you? Were you a curious kid or a quiet kid or an inventive kid or?
A little bit of both. I was an only child, but I was always entertaining myself. That was not really a problem. I loved reading books. I love fantasy. I love sci-fi. I love all that kind of stuff. And I was very creative. I knew I wanted to do something creative growing up. And really for me, that was drawing. I wanted to do art. I love drawing pictures. I got better and better as I got older. I wanted to actually make a craft out of it. But I also had this looking back, I can see the importance now. I would make board games up. Like I would watch a cartoon or a TV show and go, that's cool. I want to make a game out of that. And I did. And one of the ones I remember that was really pivotal for me was, this is going to date how old I am, but I went and saw the original Tron. The Tron movie with light cycles and frisbees and all that. I thought it was the coolest movie ever. I came home and I wanted to get a light cycle board game. And surely there was one. I begged Mom to take me to the local store. And surprised, there was no Tron board game, a light cycle game. So I was very frustrated, went home and made my own, where you rolled dice and moved and you put these little paper triangles I'd folded out behind your little piece. I still have it. It's ridiculously complicated, stupid roll and move game, but it has light cycle walls you put behind you. That was the kind of kid I was. If I got an itch like that, I would just do it. And it happened a lot with things I liked. Is it Transformers? Is it Tron? Is it whatever? I would make something out of that. And maybe we'd played a few times and that would be it. And then I found video games and got distracted for a couple of decades.
Are you still a video gamer then? Do you still play games just now?
Yes, I like all kinds of games, honestly. I am agnostic when it comes to loyalty. I will play anything if it looks like fun. I don't play as many board games, ironically enough, because it's harder for me to break away from my own prototyping, get people in the same room with me and play. And whereas I can fire up a video game and get an experience that's very, very different. I have a standing group Friday night of friends that get together and play ridiculous things, co-op and stuff, and then I play some single player. But yeah, I think they're both fascinating media, and I like to see where we can cross over here and there. But, obviously with, a brain and a computer chip behind it, video games can do a lot more. But there's a lot of inspiration I think we can take from video games, yeah.
Yeah, I've kind of interestingly seen the discussion on social media about kind of big box board games are approaching the kind of the realm where it's actually easier to have them as a video game. because the amount of management that's taken that, and it's like, are we approaching this thing where big box is becoming so big box that there's so many rules, there's so many things to remember that eventually somebody's going to go, oh, we should really have an app. We should have an app for this instead.
Yeah. And what does your app do? Yeah. Is it keeping score, or is it basically playing the game? Yeah. I remember, I mean, we laughed, but they made a dice game for Arkham Horror. It's set in the Arkham Horror world, and it's just clunky enough that like playing it in person is fun, but the app is so good because it just streamlines all the maintenance and bookkeeping and the scoring. And I love the game; it's a great game. But that is so much better as an app, and it's kind of sad because it's like to me that was a pivotal moment where it's like this really just holds together all of its own neat, interesting, but slightly complicated rules in a much better package when it's digital. So yeah, I'm with you. Anything that comes in a giant box with minis and charts and graphs, you're basically making someone else do all the computational work in the background. So yeah.
And on the same time, I don't know if you've dipped into Marvel Snap at all.
I have not yet. I'm a little scared too.
I have.
Uh-oh. And the jury says?
Oh, goodness me. It's actually, you know, it's like, I know we're talking about kind of like board games kind of making a transition into, or needing kind of video games in order to kind of do all the housekeeping, but I'm not sure Marvel Snap would work as a typical card game. And I've seen people kind of say, oh yeah, but you need, you know, once you have all the cards, you could work out, but there's an awful lot of number crunching kind of going on with multipliers and stuff like that. So you'd have your deck of cards, and then you'd have a bag of kind of plus and minus tokens for all the various kind of different kind of connotations. It really, really works. It's a lovely, elegant app. I have played far too long on it for my own good, and I'm still thoroughly enjoying it because they seem to just be working on it and not abandoning it. So I'm guessing you went high school.
Yep.
And then, unless you just went, you got to like, you just got to junior high and you just went, nah, this is it. I've had enough.
No. I was a pretty nerdy kid. I studied a lot and did all my homework and that kind of thing. Didn't love a lot of it, but I made it through.
Wait, what was your direction then after you kind of graduated high school? Did you then go to college or university, or where did you kind of go after that?
That's a great question. I floundered a little bit right after high school. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to do something artistic, but I wasn't sure what and where. So I kind of noodled around a little bit. I did a little bit of traveling, and then I eventually enrolled in one of our community colleges, which is like an in-between senior high school and college. I took a lot of classes that I was interested in, things like Japanese and philosophy and stuff like that. Really, really interesting, and also very quickly realized all the things I didn't want to do. Like I didn't want a job in academia and that sort of thing. And really it came back to, I really love art. I want to do something graphics wise. And so that's when a few years later, I ended up enrolling in college to get a degree in graphic design and illustration, which I wanted to be an animator is what this really goes back to. I was looking very seriously at Cal Arts, working for Disney, and changed my mind because it was going to be super expensive. I didn't really want to live in California, and ended up there was an animation at the school I went to. They sort of had a trajectory that was an animation adjacent thing. I went and did that, and for like my senior projects, I did a bunch of animation work. Some of it 2D, most of it 3D though. And then after that, got jobs in the industry doing multimedia animation. Back when stuff used to come on CD-ROMs, I used to make all those kind of things, all the little animated movies and games and stuff like that. I worked for a bunch of different companies, and so I had a formal education in, ironically, drawing things and making things look good, which actually has come in really handy in my daily life.
What kind of animated stuff were you doing? You can't make a throwaway comment like, I animated some stuff, and then, that's a single sentence.
Sorry,
what kind of
things
stuff?
People would... You might I worked for a company called Humongous Entertainment back in the day. I believe they're part of Atari now, but they were one of the last studios in the late 90s to be doing hand-drawn animation on computers still. So you'd get a CD-ROM, and all the stuff had been drawn by hand and then like scanned in and colored, and that's what we were doing. I ended up doing a little bit of background work on some of those projects, but I was actually the animation lead for the Blue's Clues Birthday Adventure game, which if you grew up and had a CD-ROM and ever played, there was a CD-ROM where it was Blue's Clues, and Steve would show up and help you find Blue, bounce around and get her clues for her birthday. And there was also another one after that, but I left the company shortly before we finished that one. So, a lot of head down over the desk, making sure Blue's ears flopped the right way and her paws moved and all that, and which meant I've seen every episode of the first season of Blue's Clues like 10 times.
I can see, like, on the shelf behind you, you do seem to have all the DVDs and still the collection of that, and the poster as well. That's nice.
Yeah, I'm a hardcore fan.
Is animation like one of these things where you feel like you're putting an awful lot of work in, and it's like you've got to kind of have an overall vision of where you're going with it. Because if you just kind of went, right, I'm just going to move this bit, and then this bit, and then this bit, I can imagine you slowly driving yourself insane over a short period of time. Do you have to kind of like go, no, actually, this is going to flow, they're going to jump, the ears are going to flop down, and this is kind of how it's going to kind of work?
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. Yes, you've got that very, very much on the head. There's a great saying from one of the old Disney animators of trust the process, because while you're in the middle of it, it's an absolute garbage nightmare, because you're like, this leg looks terrible, this arm looks awful, what am I doing? But then when it goes by at 24 frames a second, it looks great because it's supposed to. It's just an in-between bit. Yeah. And also, you need to map out your movement and your energy and your how the momentum is carried through movement. You have to plan all that out, and after a certain point, it becomes pretty intuitive. You don't have to think about it as much. You sort of know, like, okay, this person's landing, they're going to lean this way, their weight's going to go here, their squash is going to go here, their head will squish this way. There were some people that were brought on that were pretty new to animation at the time, and we had to teach them some of that stuff. That was kind of interesting to kind of explain, like, here, go watch some old Disney movies and see how this moves. Or really for us, it was go study how they animate Blues, because we were doing exactly what Nickelodeon was doing. We had to try and copy that as close as we could, being a third-party studio. So that was our big thing there. But there is a lot of, oh my God, what am I doing with my life moments? Like, am I really just moving this paw, and then this paw, and then this tail, and this ear? And then, of course, something would get out of sync, and you have to do it all over again, and that would drive you up a wall. So that's part of why, when years later, when things changed, and it was time to make a call on what to do. Fast forward, a tech company I'd been working for, where I had been doing a bunch of art direction and project management in animation illustration, was going out of business, and they were very kind enough to let me know that they were going to lay me off in like August. This was in February, I think. And we'd been working on board games and thinking about maybe we want to do something with our like company, quote unquote. And that's when it was like, okay, I can keep looking for an animation job, even though A, there are none in the US anymore, and B, I'm a little tired of it, or we can start this crazy idea of launching our own publishing company. So that's where that came from. And that was part of that decision, is there's only so many times you can draw the same thing over and over and not get a little bored with it. So yeah.
It's I get, it's really interesting, because I've spoken to people who were involved in actual video game development, and they seem to be approaching it from the same side, in the fact that I had an idea to make a game, but then actually getting a game to kind of work what was in my head was taking so long, where literally if I want to invent a game, I can literally take 4 pieces of paper, some dice, and a couple of cards, and I can have a basis of a game up and running that people can have fun, and it doesn't have to be kind of artistically kind of developed. Was there a bit of, now this is I don't know if this is a phrase that you'll all get over in Texas, but was there a bit of squeaky bum time when you kind of first kind of set up? You know what I mean?
I'm going to ask for clarity before I interpret that wrong, so I answer this correctly.
Were you touch scared?
Oh,
going.
Yeah. In regards to Fireside game stuff, is that what you mean? Or no. There's a story I'd love to tell when we'd gotten Castle Panic nailed down. It was going to work. We talked to our distributing partners and how it was going to go and all that. And we're about to write probably the biggest check we've ever written outside of when we paid for our house. And I had to stop Anne-Marie and my wife and our CEO and put my hand on her shoulder. I'm like, do we really want to do this? Like, this is a lot of money. And we're both like, yeah, we've been saving up. It wasn't going to break us if we lost it. And we'd rather do it and regret it than not do it. That literally was a big part of it, is like, let's just shoot for this and see what happens. And so we did. We wrote this really scary check. But yeah, there was definitely a squeaky bum time there. And there have been other times too. I mean, running a business is weird, and this industry is insane for what changes and how things come at you and what you'll see on the news and realize, oh, that does matter. There's lots of moments of like, oh no, what's this going to be? So yeah, no, there have definitely been more than a few moments. Even once it gets going, there's still times where we're like, is this a good idea? Should we do this? Yeah.
Did you go into the view with Fireside Games of having as large a range of games as possible, or going into it to say, well, let's concentrate on a couple of kind of core products and kind of push them as much as possible? Because you can understand, I've spoken to, like, I was looking at it, it was about 300 people all involved in various kind of different board game design kind of, it's almost like I could like be teaching people stuff, but I'm not, because I don't listen to what anybody says.
That's good that you have a show where you talk to people.
That's why I record it. It's like, you've spoke to so many guests. It's like, don't ask me who I spoke to last week, because I'm old and I might not remember. Right. But I am aware that there's some people that they start off in a set kind of direction, and then kind of fate kind of steps them in and pushes them in a slightly different direction. Mm-hmm. I'll give you an example. Frank West, he started off with City of Kings, and it looked like he was kind of going down. City of Kings was like this huge sprawling kind of adventure kind of game. And then he kind of brought out Isle of Cats. And unknown to him, now, I mean, you're nodding when when you hear Isle of Cats, because everybody's heard of Isle of Cats. And he seems to now be going, he's like in this line, is like, well, this is going to make me money. This is going to kind of concentrate. This is my kind of, like, and I've started to call it like your double moment. You're kind of your main meat and, your main meat and potatoes that's going to kind of keep the money going, and then it allows you to kind of do side things. So when it came to Fireside, were you kind of like, we're going to concentrate on a couple of different projects, or we're just going to see kind of where did you start, and where have you kind of ended up with how things are going just now?
It's been a journey. Part of the reason we decided to start Fireside rather than me go freelance is because I had a catalog of ideas. I had about 10 different games that we thought were really solid that we could move forward with. And when we took a step back and look, it was kind of a brand. They were all roughly similar in terms of complexity and like components and such. It was light. Well, back then, this was back in 2009. It was like medium-ish light, I would say, compared to the really, really heavy stuff, but definitely chunkier than just a deck of cards kind of stuff. So we knew we had that kind of feel, and Castle Panic was the strongest contender right away. So we launched with Castle Panic, which turned out to be a massive hit, ironically. And then we started working on what I like to think of as like the spectrum of games. Yeah. So we immediately after that came out with a slightly heavier game about vampires battling humans with a really cool dials to track the time of day and all that stuff. And it was not great. It did not do well. So that immediately was like, okay, maybe we don't push quite that far. At the same time, kind of like you were saying, fate had intervened and people were losing their minds over Castle Panic. So everybody wanted an expansion, and I had planned at least one expansion, and I was getting ideas for more, and we're like, yeah, we really should hit this again. So we did that. But during that time, we have continued to put out other games. Like we put out our first dice-only game a few years later. We did the Wizard's Tower was the first expansion for Castle Panic, and we moved on from there. So it's kind of been more like a branching path, I would say. Castle Panic's like the trunk. We know that line works. People love it. We can build the expansions out. But we have several other games that have come off of that have done well that we're keeping in reprints and stuff. So staying in that world of kind of slightly heavier than Gateway, well, really Gateway game, and then moving into slightly heavier versions of that, that's kind of been our bread and butter, and we've had real success with that. So this gets back to that. I had this list when we started. a few of those games from those lists have survived and moved on, but not many. A lot of those have been pushed aside because I got better ideas now. But yeah, we had an idea for essentially a brand. We knew we wanted to put forth a kind of game that would bring a kind of audience to it. So that was really good and really helpful to have, in everything from like, how do we market this? How do we talk about ourselves? That really helped to put a fence up, honestly, of what kind of company are we and what aren't we? That's part of it too. And then go from there. Like I said, with obviously you have to follow the stuff that sells. You'd be dumb not to. And then you want to push on other things and try new ideas, innovate where you can, take risks that you think you can afford to do, and go from there.
And your main kind of source of income, is that through continual kind of sales of Castle Panic? I mean, what's your view kind of like on the kind of the Kickstarter and things like that, kind of like the crowdfunding?
Right. Well, we've only done one Kickstarter so far, and that was for the deluxe version of Castle Panic, the ginormous super mega box. And that was kind of its own thing. It's a little weird. It's like, I feel like we haven't done a regular Kickstarter yet. We've only done this one weird thing based on a game that's been around for over 10 years. It's not going to be the same. So when we do our first new game on Kickstarter, then it's going to feel like we'll really get a taste of it. But yeah, primarily our sales through distribution and regular hobby sales, online sales, and things like that that's what keeps us going 99% of the time. Most of that is still the Panic brand, which includes my first Castle Panic, the one we did for preschoolers. That is an incredibly strong seller for us. And then the base game, all the expansions, the big box, stuff like that. And then we have our other game here, Kitty Kitty, does really well for us. That's another big seller. And then we have new stuff we're always tweaking with. But we've got a pretty steady flow of, these are our like best sellers, quote unquote. They always move, and then we're looking in new directions. But as far as Kickstarter goes, it's definitely going to be part of the future. There's no way around it. It is the only way to really sell a game anymore. If you take a game no one's heard of and put it on a shelf, no one's going to buy it. You have to have the hype, and Kickstarter is where people look for the hype. Retailers who may put it on your shelf want to know how it did on Kickstarter before then. So it's really flipped on its head from, 8 years ago when Kickstarter was kind of like, oh, that's an option. Now it's like, no, you have to sell on Kickstarter.
Yeah. And it's also interesting that you're saying that like part of that is the kind of the hype and the marketing behind it.
Yeah.
And I can see 100%. Why. And people kind of talk about, well, why do these bigger brands like your Simons and your Steamforges and folk like that, why do they continually go back to Kickstarter? And it's like, because I can release an update for my previous Kickstarter and say my new Kickstarter is available, and it's automatically going to 2,000 customers or 5,000 customers or 10,000 customers, depending on who you are in the previous kind of campaign. They kind of went ahead. It's interesting you say that people are asking how successful or how well it did or has done in Kickstarter. Is that now becoming like a metric that distributors and even retailers will ask? Well, if this was on Kickstarter, then how many units did it kind of do?
Yeah,
really?
It's very, very measurable. It is definitely part of what retailers want to know. Distribution keeps a very tight eye on that. And the other problem too is that distribution will buy those Kickstarters. They will get in on ones that they think are going to sell. And this has had a weird back-end problem in the industry where if I'm selling all my best-selling games that I know will sell, those I still need distribution to buy those up and put them on their shelves so stores can get them. Well, that shelf space is getting a lot more crowded. It has been for the last 8 years or so, with all the games coming out, but also all the Kickstarters. These guys being the distributors are buying Kickstarters that are taking up shelves in their space. Not all of them work out great in retail, but their space is limited, and in some cases they're spending so much on keeping up with all the hot new stuff on Kickstarter that they're having to stagger their reorders of what we would consider evergreens. So that's been an interesting issue where we're finding like every now and then we're out of stock in distribution for the reason that they just basically forgot to buy us or bought another thing, and then they'll buy us and sell out instantly, which is normally the metric you use to say you should buy more of that. But they need to stagger and pay their bills and get all these expensive Kickstarters. So it's very much changed how that market works. But in terms of marketing and sales, I can guarantee you, I would bet huge amounts of money that even Simon, if they were just to take a game and put it into retail and say, hey, this is available coming out next month at your local store, they would sell at best half, maybe not even half of what they would if they did a Kickstarter. For the simple fact that it's the messaging, it's the buzz. Everyone talks about it. You get excited. People get upset. They talk about it some more.
I think it's also the whale factor as well.
Yeah.
As in, there's no, it's very rare that I'm going to walk into any type of store, retail store, and put $250 down on the counter and just say, "Sir, give us your finest box of molded plastic impressed and printed trees, please." Because people would, well, close family would look at me and go, "You're crazy." But there are people that, you know, that I see online. It's almost like it's kind of strange. It's kind of like almost like there's almost like it's not delayed gratification. But it's almost a case that when somebody gets a huge box of stuff delivered from Kickstarter, financially it's kind of disconnected from what they paid at the time. The campaign at the time is built around hype. So people go, there's got this, the fear of missing out. So they'll drop like $150 on like the latest game.
Right.
And then they're like, okay, well, that's done. And they're excited and they're part of the community and everybody's happy and they'll get the pledge manager and they'll have a fit when they see the shipping price. They'll get over that as well and they'll probably add a couple of extra things to basket. And then literally a year later, once they've forgotten everything, they then get this kind of like this entire box, this small house that if they put wheels on it, they could probably drive. It's like a Winnebago.
Yes,
kind
this
of
Christmas
thing.
present magically shows up at their door.
It just shows at the door, but there's the disconnect between the financial obligation that was tied to that and the actual product kind of landing on the door. My concern with Kickstarter, and my concern with always has been with Kickstarter, is that once they arrive, the longevity, the ability to get hold of them again, it's very, very difficult. I have got a pile of games in my cupboards that they're okay. They're not great, but I'm not going to get rid of them because unless I saw them in the second-hand kind of open market again, the chances of me seeing them again or getting hold of them again are literally kind of next to nothing, and that's kind of like that is kind of like a scary thing to me.
Yeah, it'll be gone forever.
I see this I see it all the time, and people kind of going, you see, there seems to be there's a whole secondary market to Kickstarter. That's like people that kind of seem to spend lots of money on big pledges. And I've seen it recently with, I think, Frosthaven.
Oh, yeah.
And then people are always kind of, here's the Sundrop version of Oathsworn and stuff like that. People are quite happy to drop kind of like $300 or $400 on like the big pledge.
Yeah.
And it seems that they're investing because then when it arrives and the hype's there, they then stick an extra $100 on top of it, and they don't even bother taking out the box. They just kind of ship it to kind of someone else, you know.
Right.
With Castle Panic kind of being the bread and butter, has it kind of stopped you from developing more complicated stuff? Because you mentioned the kind of the vampire game, and you're kind of like, oh, it was sorry, I didn't mean to make. Oh no, I made them.
They're not all gems.
They're not all lovely. I don't always make wonderful things. Sometimes they end up in the moat of the castle. But
exactly, eaten by alligators.
With you having kind of like a strong distributor and commercial kind of relationship, do you need to look at things that I need to know that I'm going to shift a couple of thousand units of this? Are you less likely to take kind of risks? Is there kind of like a black book of Justin's kind of complicated designs that you know would maybe do a couple of hundred or if not 1,000 units on Kickstarter, but if you try to pitch that to distribution, they're going to be like, nah, we don't need this. We need Castle. We need Castle Panic in the fairy cake version or something. You know.
Yeah, I just want all our viewers at home to know that when he said black book, Richard actually held up a black book to that. It was a beautiful prop moment. It was fantastic.
It's just like,
So I'm going to jump back for a second. You said something about developing more complicated games, and to a degree, yes, but for me, the type of gamer I am, the type of games I want to make, and the experiences we're crafting, there's a limit to where I'm like, that's as crunchy as I want to get. So there's a nice area for me to play in that has a lot of range, from like a really simple card game up to something chewier. And I will say Castle Panic is on the lower end now. We're moving a little more beyond that. We're not going to get anything super Euro heavy, no 3-hour war games or anything, but we're adding a bit more complexities. We did a game a few years ago called Hot Shots that was a firefighting game that had a really nice dice engine to it, and there were a lot more decision points and pressure things to deal with on that. That's a little more like kind of where we want to get back to. Also, that's why Castle Panic, the base game, is so gateway. We have the expansions to make it chewier and more moving parts and stuff. So we wanted to make that more like a Lego system. So it doesn't stop me from doing more complex games, but I will say I have put a couple of personal projects of mine on hold because they don't fit our brand for whatever reason. They are too complicated, or maybe thematically they're too like mature. There's too much killing or whatever. It's like, okay, that's not a Fireside game. Let's do something else with that. And what happens with those, I don't know. But to get to your other question, yes, there are every game we touch, whether it comes to us from someone else or I come up with it, we run it through a gauntlet of like, is it fun? Does it fit? Is it even kind of like the brand? And then it also, can I sell it? Because that's the big thing is when we started 9 years ago, you could take a game and just send it to distribution, run some sell sheets, put a couple of ads out, and you'd move a few thousand units. Nowadays, I talk with publisher friends that are literally taking new products and moving 300-400 in through distribution, and that's it. They're done. So now they have to, and no print run is that low. not for a publisher who's doing anything in volume. So there's a lot of concern of like, this is a good game. Is it a great game, or is it good enough with enough of a twist or a hitch that we can sell it? So a lot of stuff has to go through that. Can we sell this filter, and how? Is this a Kickstarter game? Is this a door-to-door going and visiting stores game? Is this something we just sell on our website and we move a few units a year and we don't care? And we have said no to a lot of what I would call good games that have been pitched to us just because it's literally like, it's okay. This isn't going to set the world on fire. I'll be lucky to move 2,000-3,000 units, and that's barely worth the development cost and the time and all that. And also, what's the price point? Are we talking a small deck of cards? Now that's even harder to make money on. Are we talking a big fancy plastic game? Well, now I better move a lot of units because that's a lot of material. That gauntlet is less than fun, but we run it on everything. We kind of have to now. So yeah.
Has the situation with China, with respect to, well, two things: the shipping costs, which I think have got at some point they replaced the P's in that word with T's, because I know a lot of developers were just whoa.
What was it? What was your phrase? Not crusty bum. What was it?
Squeaky bum type.
Squeaky bum. Yes, there are many squeaky bum moments when you get a bid from that. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's like when people kind of shorted out GameStop, GameStop or whatever, and the price kind of going up. We're like, oh my goodness, we're in a lot of trouble. But COVID, it sounds strange, and I've mentioned this before to other people, but COVID is still a major concern in China, and they're still going through the lockdown thing, which has obviously affected the manufacturing situation. And then you've got the shipping price, because it's just going to take is somebody to decide, I'm going to start a war somewhere, or China's going to decide it doesn't want to work with us as much as it likes, because based on its political kind of, I guess its political friends at the time. So is it made kind of making the manufacturing decisions? Have you got to take kind of more into account? What's the kind of the turnaround? Do you have to kind of make a bigger kind of manufacturing window when a distributor's saying, when you're thinking of releasing this, it's like, well, I'm thinking of getting into the shops kind of October 23, but it might be March 24, depending on it. And is that had to make you think about, well, what components are we going to be getting on here? What's the cardboard content, the box size, and everything like that? Has that made you kind of have to kind of take stock on that type of situation?
Yeah. Yes and no to different degrees. Shipping prices were terrifying for a while. We managed to get incredibly lucky in that lucky is the best way to put it probably. We did a big reprint on all of our hits right at the end of like 2019-ish. So we had a lot of inventory to carry us through some of the worst pricing. But we had a container come over with 2 of our games on it that the cost was so high, we basically didn't make anything on those games. We sold those to keep them in stock and keep the advertising, and they became marketing expenses. That could not have kept going. That's a company killer. You can't do that more than one or twice, and most small companies I know couldn't do it at all. We got really lucky that we could float those 2 and then get back, and we're seeing those prices come down now. We're back to much more normal shipping prices. Delays are still weird though. Timing out of China is very, very strange. A lot of times it used to be you could get a boat within like a week. Like I would reach out to my factory, confirm, okay, it's going to be done on this day. Then I will reach out to my shipper and say, hey, it's going to be done this day. They'll get back to me and say, cool, we'll have it on a boat in 8 days. Yeah. Awesome, great. Now it'll be like 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe 4, and you're just waiting to get space. And I don't think it's a container issue. I'm not 100% sure what it is, but the times are really weird right now. And then, of course, there's customs on our end. At one point, there were over 100 boats off the coast of LA or California trying to get in. And that's everything from iPhones to cars to board games. So you would just have weeks and weeks of waiting. And people aren't talking about it. There's a trucker shortage. Getting a person to physically drive a truck up to the port, load the container on the back of the truck, and drive off is really hard right now. These guys are working all the time, and there's just not enough trucks. So it arrives, comes off the boat, and then sits in storage. And I don't know if you've ever seen the pictures of how they store containers on the coasts, but it's like a game of Tetris. Your container might be at the bottom. And if it's 5 containers deep, you're not getting it that day. They got to move those containers, put yours on a boat, and it's all it's like this massive economic simulation game of them worker placement thing of trying to get these guys out. And that's been crazy. And then, like you said, COVID too, that hit us really bad on the deluxe version that just finished wrapping up. We basically lost a month of just, they said, nope, everybody go home. We're locking the doors. Nothing gets done. And China just shuts down. And then coming back, it's a big machine. It's like starting up an engine. It takes a long time to get that thing back up to speed. So it's been, those are the kind of things that are, when I started the business, it was like, I want to make games. So I started a game company. All the stuff that goes into the company is ridiculous. Like, remember a couple of years ago when that boat got stuck in the Panama Canal? I almost had a heart attack. Not because my games were even on that boat. Not because I necessarily had any games going through the Panama Canal at that moment. But if I did, they weren't going to move and nothing was coming through. And the containers, there's this weird game of juggling containers where we send empty ones back to China, sometimes with stuff in them, and full ones come back. And if you break that chain, the whole system falls apart. And so when that thing got stuck, and I turned to my wife and I'm like, we need to make sure anything we're shipping is going now or hasn't gone, and we got to figure out a schedule. It was a nightmare. So, and stuff like that, like watching the news now can be like, oh, I'm going to have a heart attack for a thing that no one else on the planet cares about but me. Yeah,
exactly. And finally, truckers' arm has become a major disease amongst. But what I heard about the whole truck driving situation was that there was the lockdown, and then a lot of the truck driving companies kind of went, you're going to have to go out and still do it. So there's a lot of truck drivers suffered from doing the COVID. Yeah. But there was also a lot of truck drivers that just basically went, I can't do this anymore. Yep. So there's a whole raft of people kind of left, because I've got kind of like, in my day job, I do a lot of stuff with Amazon, and we do touch on the American stuff. And there's guys that were talking about, you have to speak to the logistics companies saying, we used to be able to get kind of pallet trucks into Amazon at least 2 or 3 times a week. And it's literally like, there's kind of like, you pay the logistics company, but there's occasionally like a little kind of envelope that goes to the truck driver to say, "You coming back here? If you come back again, I'll make it worth.
Hey, do you need anything? Can we get you something? You look really tired. Yeah, no, I believe it.
Protection.
It's been crazy.
It's not protection racket. It's almost like comfort blanket racket.
Right? Or just like a peace offering. Here, please, thank you. Come back again. Can I make you some cookies?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just don't panic, but please come back. Let's talk about Castle Panic.
Let's do.
Because as you say, it's been out there for a while. Yeah. So we're okay. So look at it this way, right? We've got this awkward thing where we're in an elevator, and you realize that we get both on the first floor, and we realize we're going up to the 27th floor, and then halfway in the middle, the elevator stops for like a minute and a half.
Okay.
And we introduce each other.
Right.
And then you say, I got kids. Oh, yeah, I got kids. Do they like board games? Yeah, they like board games. And then you say, I've got this game called Castle Panic. Let me tell you all about it in a minute and a half.
The elevator pitch where the elevator gets stuck.
And then the elevator pitch where the elevator gets stuck. Because otherwise it's 30 seconds. So tell us a little bit about Castle Panic. Because people will be out there going, I don't know. I've heard of it, but I don't know about it.
Sure. A lot of people don't know what it is still, so that's great. Yeah. No, so Castle Panic is a cooperative, we like to say tower defense board game. The game is built with a series of walls and towers, little cardboard walls and towers in the middle of a board, and the board is done with a series of concentric rings going out from that castle. They're labeled Archer, Knight, and Swordsman. There's also a forest ring, and monsters are going to come in from the outside trying to destroy your castle. It's very like Lord of the Ringsy kind of thing. You have orcs, goblins, and trolls coming in trying to smash your walls and towers, and you as a group must defend this castle. You'll do that by playing cards in your hand that match both the color and the ring of the board. So, for example, there's a red, green, and blue colors, and then Archer, Knight, and Swordsman. If there's a monster in the red Knight ring, and I have a red Knight card, I can hit that monster. Monsters with bigger health points will dial down so you can track their health. Monsters with smaller ones, just hit them and they're done. But at the end of every player's turn, there's a conveyor belt of evil system where you put out all the monsters will move one space closer to the castle, and then you'll draw 2 new monsters from a pile and put them in the forest. You'll be drawing things that are or goblins, orcs, and trolls, but you'll also get monster effects that will make you draw more monsters, giant boulders that will crush your castle. Things will move unexpectedly, so your plans are going to get screwed up, which is important because trading cards and trying to manage your hand is a huge part of the game. Making sure the guy next to you has the cards he's going to need. Can you make a better trade with that person over there? All of this happening in not real time, but every turn with them coming at you, it feels very, very video gamey. And yeah, the goal is survive, destroy all the monsters and have at least 1 tower left standing and you win the game. If they take out all 6 towers, game's over, monsters win, you lose. So and the whole thing plays about 45 minutes too. So it's that's Castle Panic squeezed together.
Dum dum dum.
Here's your floor.
It's all good. And then yeah, exactly. Here's your floor. And it's like, where have you been?
Stuck in the elevator with this guy.
Gotta go get myself another board game. What, another board game? Where are you gonna put that board game?
Where are you gonna stick that? Come on.
Where are you gonna put that board game? There's space.
Nobody has
space in the bed. We could put a row of board games right down the middle.
Right, because under the bed's already full, I'm sure, yeah.
Everywhere is full. Actually, in all fairness, and I don't know why I'm saying this in a squeaky voice, but
because it's better.
Because everything's better with a squeaky voice, Pluto. I'm actually quite strict about kind of games that I keep and games that I don't keep. Because I do a lot of review stuff.
Right, so and you're getting buried in them if you don't.
You just keep it. If you just keep everything, and I don't know. It's not because there's some of them I'll keep and hold on to, because they kind of struck such a chord with me. I'm just kind of like I like to play this. I'm going to play it again and again and again. But even then, I'm more likely to get rid of those ones, of the ones that I've kind of bought myself, which is a kind of a strange thing. But I do kind of on a regular basis. I actually send out review copies to like family members and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Or there's a like Facebook group, and sometimes I'll just say, "Oh look, I'm gonna be sending out some games to people," because I know, because I know sometimes these people, they'll get the game and they'll be like, "Yes, excellent, I've just got something, I'm gonna play it," and I know that it'll get played, and the whole point is getting it, getting more people playing board games, which is the thing at the kind of the end of the day. That's the kind of the important thing. So I don't have a huge amount. It's just 300 or 400. No, it's not. It's about 50. I mean, it's really. I just I've got. It's not even.
I thought you were going to say houses. 3 or 4 houses.
3 or 4. Yeah. Because we just that's what we're like in Scotland. We've just got houses everywhere.
Extra house.
I just this is the podcast. I'm not even a podcasting room. I'm in my podcasting house.
Very good. You gotta have your own one.
I'm going to my TV house down the road there and watch TV.
You don't want to mix them up tonight. I mean, come on. Collection management is its own skill, art, and psychological trauma. I'm with you. I keep things. My problem is I will pick up a game because either I bump into it or somebody recommends it and I'll go, oh, there's this one cool mechanic in here that I want to remember as a designer. Yeah. So I'm going to hang on to this. Is the game good? Or am I ever going to play it again? No, not really. It's for really that one. So now I have a box that really is essentially just a series of notes that takes up a bunch of room. That's the hard one for me to get rid of. I have to make sure I've made my notes, made observations that I need to, and then I can let it go. And we're constantly bumping into games, going to conventions and things. Yeah. Sometimes there's free giveaways and stuff. We get things sent to us to review every once in a while, to critique really and decide if we want to publish. So we have weird stuff that I might not normally have bought anyway, and then some of those I'm excited about and all that. But yeah, we have just gone gone through and done a huge purge on our collection. So I feel you there.
But there's ones like, I've got Seafall.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, it's kind of
Are
like...
you going to play it again?
No. Just...
That's not a small box either.
It's not small. It sits on a shelf. And it just looks at me. And it goes, when are you going to play me? And it's like, I don't know if I can. No, you have to. You know I'm terrible. But I don't know if it is terrible, because this is the thing.
Right. Maybe it's tried it again.
It's like watching Home Alone 4. I know that there's a spirit of Macaulay Culkin in there somewhere, but I'm just not sure. Don't know if I'm prepared to lose an hour and a half of my life for something that I potentially might not enjoy. I'm just not sure. It's kind of like there's an awful lot of rules, and it's a Rob. I think it's a Rob Davio jam. I think it's Rob Davio that did it.
I think so. Mm-hmm.
And so that is one that's never going to leave the collection. It's going to sit there, and I'll probably never ever play it. And they'll probably what they'll do is they'll be reading at my eulogy at my funeral. Right. And they'll be saying, and he did love this game called Seafall because he had that, he kept that for years above everything else that he got rid of. And
this goes to you, my friend. No,
I'm gonna make sure that goes to my least favorite relative.
I love it.
And to cousin Michael, and I don't have a cousin Michael, I leave my copy of Seafall. Enjoy, and he's going to be like, "Oh," and I'm going to make sure he's a board gamer as well.
Oh, nice, even
so
better.
They know
even
exactly.
Better.
So it's above.
So what's inheritance? I love it. That's great.
So what's next? What have we got? What's out there? What have we got planned? What we're going to be doing? You can say dinner if you want. You know what? If you're gonna, it's gonna.
Right. I do hope to have a tasty dinner. I made some soup last night. They were having good leftover soup. Yeah, no.
What kind of soup, though? You can't say
just
soup.
a vegetable soup.
Oh, nice.
Lots of cabbage and stuff, yeah.
Oh, good.
It's very good.
A little bit of bacon in there for the cabbage?
No, it's just pure vegetables. We're trying to be healthy and good now and then. Because of making up for the Taco Bell we had last weekend.
All right, okay. Well, that would have, I'm making up for the Taco Bell, the type 2 diabetes.
Exactly. You got to have some soup. That'll solve all your problems. Yes.
Absolutely.
Nice. So in addition to soup, we're doing other things. So no, there's a bunch of things we're doing this year. We're actually going to be hitting a lot of conventions this year, which because of COVID and various things, we'd cut back a lot. So this year we'll be doing a bunch. Some of them are industry type shows, like where you go to meet other distributors and retailers, and then others will be more consumer facing. We always do Origins and Gen Con. And then we're thinking about, haven't locked it down, actually I think we have almost locked down UK Games Expo. We've never done that, and I really want to get out there. I've heard really, really good things about it. But anyway, so we're doing a bunch of traveling and stuff and showing off things, primarily because we just launched this second edition of Castle Panic. We really want to show that to everybody. And then in the meantime, on the kitchen table, so to speak, I am prototyping a game that we signed a couple of years ago, an IP deal with a guy named Rich Moyer, who made a kid's book called Ham Helsing, which is a game about a vampire hunting pig. And he reached out to us. It's an illustrated kids graphic novel.
Sold already.
Isn't it great? It's so good. And when he basically approached us and said, "Hey, I'm doing this book. Do you guys want to make a board game? I think it'd be cool to make a board game." And I was like, "Yes." So we pulled the trigger on that. And I've been working on it since. Now, it's one of those things where, we signed that contract, and I told him, I am in the middle of shipping this ginormous box of Castle Panic, so give me, another year to finish that, and then I'll get on your game. So that's where we are now. I'm cranking away and tweaking things. And it's going to be a little cooperative adventure game. That's kind of our jam. We love co-ops. We do a lot of those here at Fireside. You and the main characters from the book will be running around trying to stop the bad guy before they destroy the world and all that. Very much in keeping with the spirit of the book. Ham, pork, and pig puns everywhere, absolutely everywhere. The book is dripping in it. It's very silly, but also it's going to be I'm trying to make sure it's also a good co-op where it tries to kick you behind at first. So working on that. And I'm excited for it. The art's going to be amazing because he's going to do all the art, so it's going to look just like the book.
Wow.
Yeah, that's really going to be fun.
That's what you want. That's what
I don't know when that's coming out because it just got to that point in game design where it's this is good, this is good, this is good. The whole thing's not good enough. Burn half of it down and start over. So I'm doing that now and getting to the really good stuff, but it's not there yet. But it's at this point, I think it's probably going to be a 2024 release. I just don't think we can squeeze it in by the end of the year, and we don't want to do it right around Christmas. We want it out, so that's the thing on that. But and then we also have a couple of lighter games that have rolled around. One of them is my own design, and we picked another one up as a pitch that we're like, do we want to do this? I don't know that we're going to move forward on those, but we might slide one of those in, because doing a big epic board game with licensed characters versus a quick little card game, we'll see.
Yeah, exactly. Big decisions.
And then we know after that, one of the next things we want to do is that Hot Shots game I mentioned, the firefighting one. That was a really popular game that we wanted to like edit a little bit, and that's going to be launched as a Kickstarter afterwards with probably a new expansion I'm working on too. So we'll be putting that back out into the world, which is nice because it's been out of print for a long time, and we still have people asking for that one. So that's going to be a fun thing.
Good stuff. So if people have listened along tonight, Justin, and they're like, this all sounds absolutely wonderful, but how do we keep a track on Justin without standing outside his house and just watching his every move? So where do you exist on the internet webs, Justin?
Only in the darkest corners.
No, that's not.
That doesn't help at all. Yeah, no, that doesn't narrow anything down. Yes, if people want to know my feelings on tea and coffee and all that, they're welcome to follow us. You can go right to the website, firesidegames.com, if you want to see our stuff and buy anything. Also, visit your local game store. They are what keeps us in business. Please buy from them. If you want to see what we're up to, we have a very fun, ironically, TikTok channel that we put a lot of goofiness into. There's a lot of fun up there. We still are also on Twitter, and all of these are at Fireside Games. Just that's what we're under. You don't look for my name, look for Fireside Games. We have a fun YouTube channel where I put nutshell videos and how to plays and things like that. And then our Facebook group is pretty big. If you really want to keep up with us, I would say hop onto the website and join our mailing list, because what's fun about that is we always try and tease things ahead of time on the mailing list. You'll get a sneak peek before it comes out, and it's only when we have something to say. So you're going to get like one a month if it's a really busy month. Otherwise, it'll just be like nothing. Hey, here's something cool from Fireside. So Those are the easiest, most painless ways to keep up with all the weirdness we're up to.
And we will make sure that we put all those links in the show notes so that we have got notes to show. If you want to keep an eye on what we're up to, then just go to the internet webs and search for We're Not Wizards, and you'll find us in all of the local haunts where we like to taunt, and I can't think of any other word that rhymes with aunt. No, I can't. Failed it. Perfect. But consider going to our Instagram. We've almost got 1,000 followers on Instagram at the moment.
Nice.
And so we're just at like 996. You do that thing where you go like, oh, we're 996, and then it goes 992, and then you get a couple.
You did something wrong.
Then you get a couple of people offering you interesting links to click to, and it goes up to 998, and then they get blocked, it goes down to 991. So we're at 996 at the moment, so it'd be nice to kind of get over there as well. If you're listening to this and you're like, well, this is fun, I'd like to come and actually guest on the podcast, then kind of get in contact, drop us an email, magic@we'renotwizards. I'm aware of the irony of the email address, that's why I picked it. Or you can find us on Twitter and Facebook and all these other kind of lovely places. And if you like what you've listened to tonight, then please go to your podcast catcher of choice and consider dropping us a subscription or even a rating or review. If you're on the Apple podcast, then are they still called Apple Podcasts? I think they are. Then consider giving us a rating. And as I say, don't give us 10 stars because it makes us big-headed, but don't give us 1 star because it makes us cry. Give us something in the middle, like 5, because it's average, and we're just a little bit average. But the person who's not been average is rather wonderful, rather fantastic. Justin De Witt. Thank you very, very much for guesting. There's a couple more things to do. First thing is to remember that we're many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards, Justin?
We are not wizards.
There you go. And the second thing is to say goodbye. So it's a goodbye for the man who's not here to put you in a panic, but make you calm and make you think of ham. It's Justin. Yep. Say goodbye,
Sweet dreams,
Justin.
Everyone.
Say goodbye, Justin.
Have a good night.
And it's a goodbye from me. Remember, stay safe, roll 6s, make something awful, and defend the castle at all costs. Until the next time, goodbye.
wizard is never late. Nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.